Okay, we're live. My guest today is Ty Mitchell, known in Winnipeg as TySellsWPG. You can find him under that handle, TySellsWPG on Instagram and elsewhere. Ty got his start in construction and sort of willed his way into a really cool radio gig. And then he parlayed that into his real estate license in 2021. And he has built an extremely impressive business in the meantime. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ty, but selling 91 homes last year, your third year in the business, which people that are listening or watching this that aren't in real estate, that is an extreme outlier. That's insane.
It's a lot. And it really is. Even, saying it where I think of like, okay, that's 91 closing gifts. That's 91 families that I have to stay in touch with now over the next year. And actually this year, already trending back up towards that 100 mark again this year and beyond. 2025 is always, I mean, you never know what's coming, but it's already turned into something that we couldn't have even imagined at this point.
That's enormous. Like the average real estate agent, if you're not in the industry, I think it does like 6 a year. An exceptional agent does 30, 40, 50 a year. So 91 is a freak. You're a freak. So, so that I would say puts him in the top 1% of the top 1% of the top 1%. And so Ty recently spoke at an event put on by my brokerage, and we're actually under the same umbrella. And he revealed the formula for his success. And what was cool about it, it was nothing really magical, but a couple of things I noticed. One, an insane work ethic. The guy's a really hard worker. And so I really appreciate him being with me here because I know how valuable his time is. But also what I consider a really powerful talent stack with a great set of persuasion skills. And I picked out a few there. And I don't know if we'll get into this, but I don't know if you're kind of a persuasion nerd, or if you study or read those books, or if you just naturally have those abilities, but we'll get into that. But the standout thing that I observed, and it's the title of this episode, I put Master Networker, because this guy shows an absolute mastery in networking, total natural. So anyways, welcome Ty to the Commission Impossible podcast, and appreciate you joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. And I know we were going back and forth after that opportunity that I had to share. And I'm always humbled when people want to hear, about my story, more about my story. I love sharing it because, even me who's like living it every single day, I look in the mirror, I'm like, wow, I can't believe this dream that I've turned this into. And when you use the word parlay, and it's like, I kind of look at, life as an audition, and I didn't really have anything handed to me in life, other than maybe the zip code that I was born in a neighborhood in Winnipeg that I now have moved back to after traveling across the country. And that's really helped me in business, reconnecting with my neighborhood. But overall, like, it was always a bit of a grind. I was always a bit of an underdog. And I'm sure a lot of your guests are, and like yourself, having a different background that kind of grizzles you a little bit, because you have to have some resilience. You have to have some sandpaper and some of those intangibles that like can't be taught in a classroom at university or, maybe at a community college. Like, these are true hard life skills learned from like thousands and thousands of hours of having conversations with people. I was an only child growing up in this neighborhood that I still live in now. And it's crazy because I just walk around. And even as a kid, I used to walk and wave to like the local storefront owners. I would go and warm up because it's very cold in Winnipeg, -40. And I lived pretty far from the school. So I would stop in halfway and I would connect with these business owners that some of them are still business owners now. And it's amazing to be able to shine a spotlight on their business. And then with my hockey career, like when I was in school, I had aspirations of playing hockey like any kid in the prairies does. Made it to junior, played junior A, and toiled around there, where I was never the most talented guy. I had to show up, and I had to, back then it was about dropping the mitts and throwing the body and being, on the edge and playing with that edge to your game. Cause I wasn't a huge guy, but yet, I still found a way to make my mark. And I started to realize that that was really based on networking, because that was like, hey, I have a friend who's going to play for this team and might tell his coach that, hey, there's another guy that's toiling around in junior B somewhere else. Or, like that part was always so cool to me too. So I traveled across the country and I got to meet people through hockey. So, I always like to look at it like I could go to most provinces and towns in this country and find a couch to crash on. And not a lot of people have that. My next career, where I traveled the country for 15 years working in radio, I'll tell you that if you want, I can connect the dots here, how like one led to the other. It was really like, it went from playing hockey to...
Question though, do you still have all your teeth?
Yeah, most of them. I've got a couple snaggle teeth too. And that was actually, I mean, we can talk about that too. You break down some of those self-awareness issues or just even self-image issues where I didn't want to put myself out there on camera when I first, started making videos for Instagram, which has turned into a very fruitful application for me to land new business. Like dozens of people every week connect with me through it. And like I say, like it's not because I'm good looking, right? So I'm obviously offering something. I'm offering
Well,
value.
I want to interrupt you quick because it's not organic. It's what I observed is it's not about just putting out a lot of content and having a presence because, after you spoke to our group, I followed you on Instagram and right away, you sent me a DM with a personalized video message. Hey, great to connect with you and stuff. And like that's super proactive. That's like really leveraging the platform. So it's like it's not just an organic thing that people just come to you. Like you're out there pulling them in.
Yeah, absolutely. And to really touch on that part of it, I didn't really have much of a social media profile. When I was in radio for 16 years, they were like, pushing on you to get it. Like as of like probably 2007, 2008. By 2009, it was like mandatory that as a morning radio show host, you had to have a Facebook profile to at least post on the station's page. And so I kind of caved to the pressure of it. I was like, this social media thing won't stick around. And I spent a ton of time like making friends on Facebook. I didn't realize what I was doing and how impactful it would be until now and being able to actually monetize it. When I was in that world, I didn't think about like monetizing every conversation, and not like I do now, but it just happens organically where if you're thinking about somebody and they're able to think about you when it comes to time to transact, or at least pass somebody's name along in the soccer locker room or on the sidelines where somebody's like, yeah, I'm looking for a real estate agent. Does anybody have one? You're like, wait, there's that guy that just popped up in my algorithm or sent me that nice personalized message after I followed him on social media. Yeah, maybe I'll think about that person. That actually really changed the game for me. Short form video content. And a lot of people believe that, social media is just about what people are posting on their timelines. But some of the best social media agents, yes, they've built up a following through their posting, right? You have to be consistent with the posting, but the key is to be consistent in the DMs and to
It's
be.
all in them DMs.
It is. And it used to be like a weird thing, like, the sliding into my DMs. But now it is the number one way that I'm finding that people are letting you build trust with them, right? Like by making that offering, like, hey, is there anything I can do for you? Is there something, that you're looking for specifically that I can help you find? So that's where the short form video has been really key. So what I'll do as somebody follows me or somebody new comes into my universe, and depending, I can't do it for everyone now because I'm getting like between 50 and 100 followers a week. But what I'll do is I'll go and look for people that look like they want to be engaged with. Do you know what I mean? They're active on their social media, and yeah, I'll just make them a short form video and say, hey, it's Ty. I'll usually stop what I'm doing, or I'm like walking to pick up the kids, or I'm just living my life. Like living your life is the best form of content, and so
Yeah, it's
I'm always
authentic. Right?
I'm documenting it. Yeah, exactly, and so I'll make a short video for somebody and say, hey, listen, what's up? It's time. Just walking to school right now to pick up my kids. If you have any questions, I've got a new listing coming up on Beaverbrook next week. I'll slide you the link here. And if you want to go see it off market, here's my phone number in the next slide kind of thing.
So, there's a couple of really cool little techniques in there that there's some persuasion skills in there, right? Because there's kind of a unity play and a liking play. It's like, hey, I'm just like you. I'm just a dad. I'm walking my kids to school. You're not some character, right? You're not some real estate agent that wants to sell them something. I'm with you. I'm a dad like you. I'm taking my kid to sports, or I'm taking my kid to school, or I wanted to ask you, like going back before real estate, before radio, work in construction. Like I've had guests on here that have had a kind of a story like this, and like working in a blue collar job and maybe feeling like the best parts of that job really weren't the parts they were being paid for, but like just the connecting with people and networking and creating relationships. Did you find that, and then can you tell how you sort of, I guess, kind of manifested a radio gig for yourself? That was totally a cool story.
Yeah. So first and foremost, I went to Camosun College and did the carpentry program there. And I was working with these awesome guys. But the one thing that about a job site, if you've ever worked on one, is that you kind of have to be a bit of a character too, or you have to stand up for yourself, or else you're going to just be like you're thrown to the wolves essentially on your first day. They're calling you out there looking for the toenails and looking for, like, hey, you got the board stretcher. Yeah. Like all these things that don't exist. And, as a young tradesperson at like 18, 19 years old, I was just there working out in the heat, slugging lumber, like, really realizing that this is hard work. And I was riding the bus. I was living on Vancouver Island at the time, and I was taking the bus from Souk all the way to like North Saanich for this job. And then finally I met up with this crew of guys. They were local Souk guys, and I'm still like really, really good friends with their families to this day. And it was a family company, and I just learned so much, when you kind of get taken under somebody's wing. And what had happened was I actually fell off a roof. I was building a house in Machosen, and it was after May long weekend. And, the foreman, who was kind of taking a bit of a shining to me, he's like, he's like the dad of the crew kind of thing. And I didn't have a dad growing up. So, I just kind of really liked this guy, and, I want to work really hard for him. And so I was up nailing in like these window cripples, like the studs above the windows. And I had the air nailer, and all of a sudden I was telling him about my May long weekend and about like, we were at this pub and singing karaoke. And all of a sudden I was down on the ground. Like it happened so fast. And I like hit the rocks, these blasted pieces of mountainous rock in Machosen on, Victoria. It's a rock, it's an island. And so I went down pretty hard, and, I popped back up right away, and I ran back up there. I'm like, let's go, boys. And they're like, no, man, you went down pretty hard. Like, are you sure you're okay? And I guess the slack, what he told me was the slack of the air nailer, as it ran out and got tight, it flipped me around because I was going down head first, and then it flipped me around, and I spun around, and I landed on my speed square, and my hammer blasted up inside me. So I ended up I had some internal bleeding, and he drove me to the hospital. And it was a little bit of a recovery. I'd say 6 to 8 months. And in that time, I went to the carpentry college.
Of recovery. That's a pretty serious injury.
It was, yeah. And my back's still kind of like, as I sit here, I'm like, talking about it. Like I don't think about it often, but it's still to this day at 40, almost 41 years old.
Still feel it.
Oh yeah, totally. And I think about it, and I'm like, wow, like what a blessing to make it through that. And then I realized very quickly that after that injury that like I might not be long for the carpentry game. And I realized I moved back to Winnipeg, and I was working outside with my friend, and it was minus 40, and I just back from this injury, and, it's kind of sore. And I was up walking around with a 4x8 sheet of plywood, and the wind was howling about 40 out in rural Manitoba, and you're from the prairie. So you can imagine this, like, that wind coming off in Rocky Mountain House, like this is like a howling gust of like 50, 60 kilometer winds. And I'm carrying this sheet of plywood, and I basically get like blown off. Now, I get blown off the roof. This is happening again to me now. And I'm like, are you kidding me? As I'm sailing down, this is like a sail. Luckily, there was a bunch of snow, so I landed fairly softly with this one. And my buddy was like, hey, man, as far as this goes, like, are you going to be okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm fine. I was like, but you're going up on the ladder. And we would always be listening to the radio, and it felt like the guys on the job site always had such an affinity for these guys from the radio, whether it was Ricker from KISW in Seattle or Bro Jake at Rock 101 in Vancouver. And it was Wheeler and Hal at Power 97 in Winnipeg. So I would always hear these guys on the job
morning
site.
Morning guys, right?
Morning guys. They were morning stars. And I was like, man, like these guys really look up to these guys on the radio. So then I would go home, and I would like practice my comedy bits, and I would practice, my voice and my enunciation and articulation. And I'd work on back selling the songs and all the things that I thought I needed to do. And I started studying radio, and I just started paying attention and listening to old tapes. And I was living in Victoria at the time. I was going back and forth between Victoria and Winnipeg, had friends in each. And so as I was in Victoria, I was working at a dead end job. I couldn't really do the construction thing. The body was aching a little bit. And I guess like I got the gumption to just go and make a demo tape. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do this. Like, what am I waiting for? Like, you've almost died twice falling off roofs of houses. Like, what are you waiting for? Like, when are you going to do this? I was like 21, 22 years old. And then so I put together what I thought was a demo tape. I didn't go to broadcasting school or anything like that, but I had studied enough of these, they're called air checks. I had studied enough air checks that I kind of knew what it needed to sound like. It had to be under 3 minutes, and I put it on CDs, and I made up 10 CDs, and I got 4 callbacks, one from a program director in Duncan, one from a guy in Nanaimo, and then another one from Lindsay, Ontario, and then one in Peterborough, Ontario. And I ended up taking the job in Lindsay because it just felt like it was, you get that gut feeling when you're like, okay, this is going to be my best opportunity to win. Because I heard the air staff that was on there, and I was like, okay, these guys they were the weakest air staff out of all of them. So I got hired to do Saturday mornings. I started off doing 6 a.m. to noon. And then like after that first week, I was just like fired right up. I went to the bar, and like people like knew who I was. They heard me on there. Right. And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Okay.
A bit of local celebrity.
Yeah, like, right away. So I was like bit by the bug, and I kind of knew, I was like, yeah, I might be able to do this, right? Like I really felt after a couple of weeks that, so I started offering to do more, and then I would do the Sunday afternoon show for free, and then the afternoon guy, I don't know what the deal was there. I think like he just wasn't great at his job, to be honest. I think that was the case. And they saw that I was like hungry and coming in early before this guy was even showing up. And like, I just knew that I had to outwork this guy and show this program director that I was the dude.
So you took
And
him out.
I did. Yeah. And then I got the afternoon job.
Ruthless.
Yep. Sorry, Joe, in the afternoon show. It worked out pretty well for me though, because I parlayed it into a pretty good career. What was cool about that job, my first radio job. So like, you talk about climbing the corporate ladder, right? And really learning about that networking and how to network that boss to the point where like he's kind of doing the thing that I want him to do, which is give me a promotion, give me more air slot, like, a better shift on the air, right? So I want to move up from afternoons. The coveted slot's the morning time slot, right? So I want to get to mornings, but the boss is also the morning guy. So now I have to kind of become bigger than the boss, right? So
Right.
he went on
It's
holidays.
dangerous.
Very dangerous. He went on holidays and I slid in for him, and I did something pretty crazy. And I'll tell you, it's a pretty wild story. The week before, when you work in local small town radio in a city of like 25,000 people, you get asked to go to the opening of an envelope. And I used to go to all these rinky dink events, and I get invited to this one, and it was at this ops hockey arena. And they said Johnny Bauer's going to be there. One of the local dads said, "Hey, we'll have some beers." And I was like, yeah, okay. I was like 22 years old, and like chance to go get on the microphone. Like, okay. At the time, I was single. Exactly. Like, we'll see if there's some hockey moms at the rink. Like, why not? Like, whatever. So I go there, I'm kind of buzzing around, hanging out with Johnny Bauer, just, really feeling like I'm a radio star at this point. And I didn't know what the event was for. And then we're kind of chatting afterwards, and, like as the whole brouhaha, and I get my script, and now it's time to go perform. And I'm kind of reading about this. I'm like, what's the deal with this? What is this event? So it was for this young boy, and he was sick. He was sick with leukemia. And so once I learned about this story, and I went back to the radio station on Monday, talked about this fundraiser that was done with Johnny Bauer and how I went out to this event. And when I talked about it on the air, a lot of people were like, wow, that's an amazing story. What a tough young boy. He was a kid who was getting treatment at McMaster Hospital in Hamilton. And so he started to gain a little local notoriety. The newspaper, the Lindsay Post, had picked up the news story about this event with Johnny Bauer, a couple pictures in there. So, this kid's got some status. He was at the event, and they were trying to raise money because he had to spend more time at McMaster Children's Hospital, I guess was the gist of the fundraiser.
Right.
And so a couple days go by, and the coach actually called me at the radio station, and he was like, "Hey man," he's like, "You have a second to chat?" And I was like, "Well," I said, "Yeah, we're playing Doug and the Slugs right now. There's about 40 seconds left. What do you got?" And 40 seconds in radio land is like, I got enough time to go for a pee and a smoke break kind of thing. But no, it's like, a lot of time. So what do you got? And he said, "Okay, well, remember that boy, Avery, he's away at treatment right now. And I guess somebody, like must have heard that there was, something going on, and they broke into his house. So they broke into this kid's house and stole his Nintendo Wii. Had just come out. This was 2008. Mm-hmm. So Nintendo Wii 8 or 9, and Nintendo Wii had just come out. They took the TV, they took his games, they took like a bunch of his toys and stuff like that. So I was like gutted, because I knew this kid. I'd gone to the fundraiser, you know what I mean? Like I started to feel some attachment to the story. Yeah. So I went on the radio, and I was like gutted, and that was like my first time, like, and I was a young guy too. And I just like basically spoke from the heart and said, like, this is how I feel. This is upsetting. And I'm pissed. And I had known the mayor a little bit too, cause that local celebrity type thing. And so the mayor, I called him and said like, "Hey, like, is there something we can do for this boy?" And we had a sponsor of the radio station, Iceman Video Games in Lindsay, Ontario. And I called the owner of Iceman. They sponsored the station. I said like, "Hey man, you guys sponsor, the local whatever contest we're doing." But I said like, "This is what happened to this kid. Do you guys have access to a week?"
For them.
Yeah. So of course they jump on board. So I got the mayor with some cash. Now all of a sudden, like in the last hour of the show, now there's like thousands of dollars coming in. The whole community is like rallying around this kid. So then this guy calls up, and I kind of knew the local limo driver too, because, same thing, like you're always going to events. And I told the station, like, I don't drive when I'm going to events kind of thing. So this limo driver, Terry, calls up, and he's like, "Hey man," he's like, "there's only one thing to do. All these people are dropping off toys, a new TV, the video game set." He's like, "We're hopping in this limo, and we're driving to Hamilton, and we're going to deliver this to the McMaster Children's Hospital." So I was like, let's do this. So like, I have pictures of me hopping in the back of this limo, my greasy long hair, just like no clue what I was doing. Like I was just like, crying. I was like happy. I couldn't believe it. Like I didn't even know who to tell, because like, it was just like one of those things, your career is just like starting out. And I was just like, wow, this is insane. And I went down to the hospital, and when you go to a children's hospital, I mean, I think you think at first, as you walk through the doors, you're like, oh, this is going to be a sad place. But I walked in and it was not a sad place. It was actually like everybody was so nice and welcoming and warm. And the families were like, hey, they couldn't believe what I was doing. And I'm going like, I can't believe what you're going through. And it was like this crazy moment where I get to walk into the room and the kid's mother is like, hey, we've been hearing on the radio like what you've been doing for us all day. And we're so grateful and thank you. And so she put me in the room with this young boy, Avery. And I sat there and we plugged the Wii in. And I didn't really know much about video games. I didn't grow up playing video games, but he was kind of showing me, just like how to play. And once you chat to a young guy like that who's going through what he's going through, and I was like in my 20s and just no clue of what was to come in life, and I didn't know that that'd be the last time that I'd ever see this kid. I walked out of that hospital and I hopped back in the limo. Okay, yeah, so I'm totally moved seeing this kid, and I walked out of that hospital room not knowing that it was going to be the final time that I would see young Avery. I got into the limousine, and as I was driving back across the GTA in rush hour traffic, my phone rang. My phone had been going off for like media requests and stuff throughout the day. And so I get a call, and it's this guy. His name's Fred Patterson, Freddie P. He said, hey, I'm the program director for Chorus Entertainment in Peterborough, Ontario, of the station 1015 The Wolf. Listen, I've been listening to you for the last little bit. Obviously, you got some talent. He's like, this community thing that you're doing for this kid, Avery, is like a reason for me to hire you, like now. So he's like, I've had a morning guy here for 16 years who hasn't done any community initiatives like this. Like, he's like, man, I need you on my team. And that was the first time somebody actually like fully like called me and said, like, I believe in you. And I mean, I still think about it anytime I'm like having, a moment in real estate. I just think of that call and how that changed my life. Because once I got that, I went from that one morning gig to the next morning gig. And once I got that second morning gig, I was established as a morning man. And that once you're established as a morning man, those are the only gigs that you really do, right? Like, and then that's what you want. So then I traveled from there.
That's the cherry job there.
It is. And I was able to work twice in my hometown. I worked at two stations that I grew up listening to. In fact, the station that I used to listen to the morning show, Wheeler and Hal, while we were working construction in like 2004, I replaced them. I worked like directly on that station after them, and then went on again to 92.1 City, which is a heritage rock station here in Winnipeg. And I worked at a couple of stations that I grew up listening to. It felt like a homecoming both times that I came back. And now being able to, work in real estate at something that's like it's very similar to radio. It's very similar to even the job site. Like it's all how you frame it, right? Like you've got somebody that's going to be your boss, and no matter what you do, right? And that's going to be the client. The client's always going to be your boss. But like the nice thing about, I guess, real estate versus anything else that I've done is that now I have the freedom to, push back a little bit and say no if there's something that, is on my not to-do list. Because now I've just kind of like steered my life to the point where, I've had all these experiences, and I know what I like and I know what I don't like, and I need to not be spending any time in the zone of do not like, right? It's not effective.
That's a real luxury. Just control over your time and control over your schedule, and you get to decide who your clients are. That's a really sweet place to be in. I observed something there through that story, and that's a really cool story too, how that all came together. But when the chorus program director calls you, it's probably not lost on you that the effect that community involvement had, and that there was like thirst for that the listeners wanted to hear that, and that not just that it wasn't, it was creating doing something meaningful, right? Is that people wanted to hear that, and that there was a market for that. That's probably a big light bulb moment too, right?
Yeah, it was. And having that chance, because that actually spun off into not just another job for me. I was welcomed back at the radio station when the limo got back, and the mayor was there, and like they greeted me with this crew of people. And I actually got invited on a trip to Japan with the mayor, with the MP, with the guy who's, I think, the MP, a couple bigwigs from town. And it was like an anniversary trip. And I got to go as like part of a delegation. And again, I was like 24 years old to have that experience. Like, that it feels like so long ago to me now at 16, but or like 16 years ago now, like at 40. But I'm just like, I'm grateful for those opportunities, because even now in business where I'm like, oh yeah, right, like you've done some things. Like you've had some big game experience. And like, even when you're sitting down at the table at a $1.5 million listing or whatever it is that you think you'd be nervous about, yeah, maybe get some butterflies, but just having that belief in yourself that you're like, okay, man, like you've fallen off roofs, you've done a bunch of things to get to this point. Like you can surely sit down with these people and show them your value proposition and why they should choose to work with you.
Yeah, totally. 16 years plus of this radio career took you all over the country.
Yep.
So from town to town, and then you land back in Winnipeg in your old community. Was that intentional? Is that where you wanted to end up? I mean, going from Victoria, I mean, being on the West Coast all those years.
Yeah. So my wife told me we were actually living in Niagara. So I was doing the afternoon show and was syndicated. So I was on 97.7 Hits FM, which is a station that services Buffalo, Toronto, and iHeartRadio. It's a Bell Media station. And the other one was 89X in Detroit, Windsor. And so I was having a great time, and the company had plans for me. I was filling in on a talk show. I was really loving Niagara and had no intention on leaving. And then there were some things that happened here locally in the radio market. And this guy, again, somebody else who believed in me, a guy, his name's Danny Kingsbury. And I tell him all the time how grateful I am for him believing in me, because it afforded me an opportunity to come back to Winnipeg. But my wife said, if we move back to Winnipeg, we're not moving again. So you can get a job at Canadian Tire. You can find something else that you like doing. So
putting down roots.
Yeah. So, I got kids, they're in school, and we wanted to, and Winnipeg, it was my hometown growing up. We have great friends here, a great network of people. And what they say, your network becomes your net worth, I guess, in some ways, but also just the familiarity of, having that hometown advantage, being from here, being from the neighborhood. So when we moved back to Winnipeg in 2018, actually, we lived in a different neighborhood from where we live now. We've actually moved 3 times since we've been back to Winnipeg, because it was just the way that it went. And every time I was in a neighborhood called Sage Creek, built up a local business there, still have a listing there, have buyers there. Like I work in that neighborhood a lot, but the neighborhood that I grew up in is River Heights. It's a core neighborhood, 35, 40,000 people, 20,000 houses or so, lots of turnover, lots of old homes, everything ranging from like 1900 all the way to like 1970, and then some brand new builds, infill type stuff. So it's a neighborhood that most agents want to covet because the sale prices are high. The people to work with are overall very great, because you have a lot of professionals, right? You have a lot of people that understand the value of doing business, whether it's accountants, lawyers, doctors, whatever it may be. But you have a lot of people, I find, that are willing to pay for good service and willing to pay good money for good homes. And also in some cases, depending on the generation, most have their expectations in line, because there are a lot of sales that happen in this area. So there's tangible data that you can show people. So very seldom.
Is this the community in Winnipeg that has all the really cool mid-century homes?
There are a bunch of mid-century homes. Yeah. There are 2. So there's River Heights has a ton. In South River Heights, I just sold some great places in South River Heights. I have a listing actually in South River Heights right now too. And I sold one there last year that was a renovation house that sold for just over $1 million. So $1,060,000 for context. That was a record-breaking sale on a 2,700 square foot home. I just sold that same house basically unrenovated with an attached garage that sold for $760,000. So, again, with maybe a $200,000 renovation, you could get it to that level. So you're seeing some of these homes, 50s, 60s, 70s, that are being turned over and renovated and now being sold for a lot more as well. But people like River Heights, especially because of the character of the neighborhood, tree-lined streets, oak, elm, ash streets,
big mature trees.
Yeah. And everything ranging in price from thousands all the way up to, Blake Wheeler's house sold for $4.785 million, last winter. So it does happen. There's a house that's been sitting for in the 8s, right? I just went for a walk last night, not far from my house, and just, you walk past that house and it's insane. It's just like you would imagine an $8.5 million house would look like, but
wow.
Yeah.
In Winnipeg. So just going backwards a little bit. So you move back to Winnipeg. You take on a morning show gig there, I take it. So, now it's what, 2021, 2022. What makes you decide you want to get into real estate?
Yeah. So there was some overlap between the two as well. So what I'll say is,
did it on the side a little bit.
I did. And to the chagrin of the company that I was working for, I feel like, there was just a couple conversations that happened that, maybe it felt like my attention was leaning more towards my real estate career. And after bouncing around for that many years and working for that many different companies and in radio, I just kind of felt like this is probably the time to exit stage right. Like just call your own shot, bet on yourself. And that's exactly what I did. I told myself as soon as I make as much money in real estate as I do on the radio, that I will take that leap. And it took me about 6 months.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, I hit the ground running in real estate. I really did. And so once you start getting that momentum, and you know this business, any business really, once you get momentum, it gets hard to stop. And so for me, the getting up at 3:30 in the morning was getting old very quickly.
I can
And
imagine.
seeing that the opportunities, as my phone was buzzing a little bit earlier and earlier every day, and I'm like, geez, I'm really enjoying what I'm doing. And once I just kind of got that out of my system, I actually did go back for a little foray of just doing like some voice track work for iHeart, but I just, my heart wasn't in it. I had to
Right.
call some very good friends of mine who gave me a chance in radio and say, "Hey, you know what? I appreciate you guys. Thank you for this. The ratings are really good." Like the ratings were really, really good, and it gets hard to walk away when you're winning at something. But I was
Yeah.
winning at something else, like even more, that those people just didn't quite understand at the time. So, we're all good now. Everybody's friends, but
But you quit on top.
exactly. That's how I feel. Like that's truly how I feel. It could not have gone any better for me, because so many people get that handshake and it's just like you're out the door, never to be heard from again, right? And you're just, you go to being anonymous really quickly. And I think there are a lot of people that go from having that spotlight shone on them to having nothing. It can be challenging. For me, I actually didn't want it anymore, I thought. Then I didn't realize that, wait, as soon as I direct the spotlight back on my real estate business, it's actually really good for my real estate business. So
Yeah.
I started directing the spotlight back on myself, and putting myself out there after about a year of just not really doing any social media. November 8th, 2022, I quit drinking and just picked up the camera. I was like, okay, I'm going to commit to this for a year. Just like self development, personal growth, something that I hadn't done. I was like, let's just do this. Let's go in to a really hard time of year too. Like I always like to do things the hard way for
Of
some
course.
reason. Yeah, like right. I decided to quit drinking right before all the Christmas parties.
All the
Well,
drinking parties. Yeah.
yeah, like really, yeah, exactly. Like opportunities to go lose your job.
Yeah.
I made it through 3 big Christmas parties, and I made it through the whole month of December. And I was like, okay, well, I still like the people around me enough that, okay, I can make it through this. And then by January, everybody's doing dry January. So I got a couple
Mm-hmm.
months under my belt, and I'm like, okay, I can
Got a
do
head
this.
start.
Now, by the third month, by February, now I'm like, dude, I'm actually feeling really good here. Like, oh, now I'm
Mm-hmm.
losing some weight. I'm like, not like this. I'm like caring about my appearance a little bit more.
Maybe I
I'm like,
won't drink anymore.
and then here we are. Yeah. So what are we at? Like June 8th. So that's a while. I don't know. It's over two
Yeah.
and a half years anyway. It feels like longer. It feels like something that, if I'm to find a parallel, because I still would have been successful. Like, don't get me wrong. I still, even while I would have beers, like, on a, like after work or whatever, in the evening, like to socialize on the golf course, something like that. Like, still just that little extra, you know, downer that you're giving yourself, because
Mm-hmm.
really that's what it is. And I'm not like knocking on it. Like it doesn't matter. Some people can function at a really high level. I just realized that like I needed to give myself a chance to function at the highest level possible. And once I gave
Yeah.
myself that chance to function at the highest level possible, and I started seeing the results, and I was achieving things that I didn't think I could achieve,
You
and my
can't go
sleep
back
was
after
better,
that.
and there's everything else that was going better. And I was like, well, now the decision was made for me.
Yeah. Yeah. That's an easy one. Well, I'm glad you brought that up, and a lot of my friends don't know this about me, but I haven't had a drink since Christmas, and I went
Mm-hmm.
through kind of a similar journey on that. I was like, well, can I get through these parties and stuff, and I didn't have a sip for most of November, December, and I was like, you know what, we're hosting at Christmas. I'll have a couple glasses of wine. I had a few glasses of wine, and after not drinking for like 2.5 months, and I was just like, I don't think I want this anymore. And then I just haven't had nothing since. So, and are you finding a lot of people that you're having the same conversation with a lot of people that have decided to give it up?
Well, it couldn't have happened for me at a better time too. So November the 7th, I'm in New York City. I'm a big Mr. Deeds guy. So that's my favorite
Right.
movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Adam Sandler.
Adam Sandler.
Yeah.
I love Mr. Deeds, man. He's just a man about town. He knows everybody. He's waving around. He's carrying pizza. I'm a big pizza guy. I love pizza. And I don't know. That was my favorite movie. It hit me at the right time in life. A girl gave it to me for a Christmas gift when I was like 19 years old. And I had the VHS. I traveled it was like one of my few worldly possessions when I was down and out, and just like, living in a basement apartment, like just,
You wore out that DVD.
I wore it out, man. I wore it out, and just always loved that movie. And, where the hell was I going? Why was I telling you so much
What were you
about
talking
Mr.
about giving
Deeds?
up alcohol?
Yeah, yeah.
You're talking about being in New York or something.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So I'm in New York. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, this is crazy. So I go into this cigar bar on the Upper East Side called Macanudo, and I go into this place and I look around the side of my shoulder and I'm like, it's Reverend Al Sharpton. The Reverend. And he's from Mr. Deeds, and he does the poem, and he says goodbye to Preston Blake, and he's in the church, St. Peter's Cathedral.
I got to watch this again now. It's been a long time.
It's very obscure. It's a very obscure reference, but this is why I quit drinking. I swear to you.
Yeah, this is hilarious.
I turned around. I was like I'd been drinking some dark liquor too, and like smoking stogies, which like I didn't even do. So I was like feeling like sick, I was like, just feeling bad, like just not feeling good. And then I see Reverend Al Sharpton, and I went over to him, and he's like, brother. And I was like, I think I need to make some changes. Like I just start spilling my heart out to Reverend Al Sharpton. Yeah. And he let me spew for like 90 seconds. And I got a lot of words out in that 90 seconds. And he told me, he's like, I believe in you. And I was like, man, that felt pretty good. So I went to the bathroom and I rinsed my face. I said to my cousin's husband, I was like, I'm going back home. And I like did like the wobble all the way back to the place. And I woke up in the morning and I said to my wife, I was like, I think I'm going to quit drinking. She's like, heard that before, like, big night, right? Yeah, sure. Okay. Well, you got the blues, like, the Sunday scaries, whatever you want to call it.
The shamesies.
Like, man, the worst, like, the anxiety, and you're just like, But anyway, I called my friend Heather in Vancouver and I said, hey, I need to tell somebody that I'm going to quit drinking. Otherwise I won't do it. And she's like, do it, man. Do it.
She's like, your sponsor now.
Well, she doesn't, no, she drinks. But she does
yeah.
She's a big boozer,
buddy.
She does it. No, she does a 100-day no booze challenge every year. And I was always amazed that she can just not drink for 1/3 of the year and then drink really hard for the other 265.
You got to make up for it.
Exactly, for lost time. But no, so then that's November the 8th. I come back from New York. Then November the 10th, I sit down with two guys by the name of Jesse and Addison. They started, bringing people to, the attention of Real Broker entering Manitoba. And so I sat down with them and they're like, hey, there's this thing that's coming. And I was like, okay. And I started researching and digging, and I had something to look forward to. And I had some excitement because I don't even know if Jesse knew this at the time. And I've told him since, but I knew that from social media that he posted about his sober journey. And I knew that he was like 8 years, removed from drinking alcohol at that time, I think it was. And I was really impressed, actually. I was like, wow, how do you do this? Cause I always thought maybe like, his videos, you watch him online and you're like, maybe this guy is ramped up. I don't know. But when you don't know somebody, you don't know. And you have these, preconceived notions, I guess. And I met the guy and he was like really super humble. Oh my gosh. And I just kind of told him that I was starting this. And I think he was like, okay, well, hey man, if you need to talk to somebody, whatever. Right. But I just had in the back of my mind that I had, again, somebody else who maybe believed in me that I could do it. And and I believed in myself because I was like, you can do this. Like, really, like, come on. You're the only one that's stopping at the store every day. You're the only one going and picking up the beer. You're the only one going and sitting down and putting it in the fridge and drinking it and going through all this routine stuff, right? Break the habit, break the routine. And so anyway, having Jesse in my corner really helped leading up to the launch of Real in May of 2023. And I felt that once I started meeting other people in the community, and whether it was people that are in real estate or not, but once I started to commit to not drinking, man, it's amazing how people find you. Yeah, it's crazy.
Out of the woodwork.
Like, it's like, crazy, man.
Really,
like the amount of people. And I'm going like, oh, like, exactly. I'm like, oh, and then, like, I'm not in like some crazy recovery. I went and saw a therapist for like the first 4 Wednesdays. And I really appreciated this guy just listening to me and kind of hearing me out, and maybe a couple of things that I was struggling with and some demons from the past, and, making excuses is what it came down to. And, having even just somebody to talk to is so important. Having a mentor, having a guide, and I don't talk about it a ton on social media. In fact, I don't really talk about it at all. I don't even really look at it like it's a big deal for me. Like I just never really, I'm not there yet. I just don't feel that anybody cares necessarily about my journey, but I love hearing what other people want to share. And I'm always here to like listen to people.
Funny coincidence. Cause it's been on my mind too. And I keep, I just had a conversation in the DMs with a real estate lawyer that, that dropped some hint about him. How long you've been since you had a drink or whatever. And yeah, I keep bumping into him. Hey, I wanted to ask you, going back to Mr. Deeds. So something else I noticed when you're talking about, when you're speaking to our group last week, the pizza thing, like you're kind of like this Mr. Deeds in real estate. And what I recognize there, and maybe you didn't see it as this, or maybe you do. And I was kind of curious, but there's, well, here, I'll show you this book. Do you know this book? It's called Influence.
I've never read it.
Psychology of Persuasion. Anyways, it's like the Bible for persuasion, but he identifies the 6 weapons of persuasion and how they're used by people that he calls us compliance workers, anyone that kind of works in sales. And if your job is to talk somebody into something, right? But one of them is, I think it's the first one in the book, is reciprocation. So there's this principle that this psychology behind it, that if you give somebody something, even even a Coke, you give someone a Coke. Someone gave me this because I had my name on it. They feel you plant something in their subconscious that they feel they got to give you something back, even if they don't know it, they don't realize it. And I heard you talking about how you give away free pizza, and it was just the funniest thing. Like, it's like, this is actually pretty high level.
It's simple, but
strategy.
it's high level, right? It's like
it is
the easiest thing.
So okay, can you break that down? Because you have a deal with a local pizza place, and like, hey, go to my, I don't know how this, you can explain it, but someone can register with you and get a coupon for a free personal pizza, and it costs you like $6.
Yeah. So, the law of reciprocity, I think, is interesting. I don't keep a scorecard, and that's been a big thing for me too, because I know there are some people that think they believe in the law of reciprocity, but they want to say, well, hey, but I did that thing for you. Are you going to do this thing for me? And I never
Right.
do that.
And that
I
kind of
always,
ruins it, right?
it
That kind
does.
of defeats the purpose of it.
And you can tell the difference. And that's the difference between a salesperson and for me. I just help somebody come to the decision that they want to come to, right? Like, I'm just leading them down a path, presenting the facts, right? These are what we know. We know this, 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 and this. And this is, the terms, the conditions, the price, whatever it may be. And here's what we also know. We have no showings booked for the next 5 days. We have no activity. We have some feedback that's saying we're priced too high. We have comparables showing. So really, all I'm doing is just identifying all of the factors that are at play here, right? And then usually people will come to their own conclusion. I always say to people, like, it doesn't matter to me if you take this deal or you don't. Like, there will be another one at some point, but I can't guarantee that it's going to be of this price, of these conditions, whatever it may be, right? So some people will come to the realization, and then some people just won't, and they're stuck for whatever the reason is. So then our job is to unpack, sort of why, and just, get them to that finish line. And the question is always like, are you serious about selling your home? Like,
right.
Right. Cause like, if you're not serious about this, then the market's not going to be serious about this, or I can't be serious about it.
Yeah.
So that's sort of the reciprocity and how I frame things. Now, to jump into the pizza. So in radio, you're always giving stuff away. You're always getting people into your listener club, your breakfast club, whatever it may be. And I always thought that it would be a great way to connect with people. So when I was growing up, this family, I'm still friends with them. The parents, they used to do Pizza Fridays, and they used to let all the riffraff kids like myself and a couple other kids come over for pizza on Fridays. And we always got to enjoy that. And it was like, again, at the time we thought they were so rich for like doing this. And it was like, oh my gosh, like, we can't believe they're giving pizza. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, this is nuts. Every Friday they do this. And it's like 3 XL pizzas at the time for Domino's was probably like $25. But man, it's a gesture that stuck with me for my life. And I always said, if I ever get to a position in my life that I can afford to do this for my family every Friday, like, it's just something that I felt was like really wholesome, because I didn't grow up with a normal family structure. So I was like, this is something that I want to be a part of. So once I started going and hitting up this local pizza place, that it's got like great heritage. I think it's 1955 since they've been around. And so people really, really like their pie. It's priced a little bit on the higher side, so it feels a little bit more gourmet, right? It's a pizza that you wouldn't normally, special occasion pizza, everybody's got their hometown special occasion pizza place. And then there's the pizza, the pizza 76, whatever the hotlines, whatever it may be. So this is like special pizza. So knowing that, I thought to myself, I was like, well, this would be a great way to connect with other families in my area and just say, hey, I'm stopping for my family to pick up pizza on Friday. I would love to stop for your family. So what I want you to do is, on my Instagram feed, like, comment, tag, and share this post, and I'll be in touch with you. And what I do, like, when I put something like that out there, is I'm going through and I'm seeing all of these people who are following me. I'm seeing the people that are tagging. I'm responding by liking every person that's reached out. I'm following them back, especially if somebody's tagged a new person. Those are the people that I'll reach out to, and I'm looking at their timeline, and I'm like, okay, this is somebody who looks like I look for my avatar, basically. That's right. I'm looking for somebody that I want to work with, and I'm reaching out to them, and I'm saying, hey, just wanted to say, congratulations. I'm going to grab you a pizza for your family on Friday. I'll take some of my branded swag. So I have like some little Yeti mugs. I'll put together like a little package of like maybe just like a small little, think like $15 to $20, like a basket with a couple little goodies. Like I said,
hey, back up a second. Did you just say branded Yeti mugs?
Well, so what I do, I have like these little wine tumblers. Yeah. So they're just little wine tumblers that have my QR code on them.
Yeah.
And then they've got the TySellsWPG logo on them.
Smart. Well, I do Yeti mugs too. That's such a great
Yeah.
gift. I love giving those
No,
away.
it
People
is.
love
It
getting them.
really is. And people will actually use them and let their friends use them around the
Totally.
campfire. So I try and do that. And again, I'm looking for people that are engaged in the social media game. Like they're posting, they're active, they have a family, they are in the neighborhood, right? Like you can find all these key outliers when you're looking for your contest winner and who you want to engage with. Because anybody that's been tagged or shared or liked the post, they're putting their hand up and saying like, "Hey, Ty,
That's
I
right.
want you to talk to me. Like, tell
Yeah.
me that I won." And what I'll do
It's
is
permission.
actually, it's permission. And
Yeah.
so I'll actually go back and send them a video and say, "Hey, look, I'm sorry you didn't win this contest this time around, but I'm going to be doing another one next month for blank, 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 whatever the case is." And they usually respond, say, "Oh, hey, that's great. Thank you." And believe it or not, usually along the way, every so often, I would say a big chunk of these people will have some kind of question to do about real estate.
Of course. Yeah.
It's like it's not every time, but it's like it's a lot of the time. Once people know that you're a willing participant and willing to respond to, there must be agents who like just have completely full DMs that just don't ever see or respond to the messages. But I would say that like taking the approach of responding to every single person who has done this will get you so much credibility with people. It just shows that you care. It shows that you're taking an extra step, an extra second to do a little bit extra. And we're in a job where like the value stack is this, the average agent's going to do 1, 2, 3 things, the elite agent's going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 things. And here's what I'm going to do for you. I'm going to do ding, 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 ding. And I'm going to respond to every single person with a direct message that reaches out of the 20,000 people that I can, like, right. As people are liking the post, sharing the post, I'm thanking them for that. I'm going and I'm like, "Hey, thanks for sharing. Thanks for commenting. Appreciate the love." Whatever the case is, I always try and let people know that I'm thinking about them.
Well, that's cool. And on one hand, I see like, a pretty strong persuasion play, but from your perspective, you're just doing what you do. You're being you, and you genuinely have a knack for connecting with people. Like there's a book. Did you ever read any Malcolm Gladwell's books? There's a book called Outliers.
Okay.
So
I'm probably like the worst for this because I'm sure there's like I haven't read any of these books. The only
yeah,
I'm so bad. I don't
that's
even
okay.
I'm embarrassed because I'm like so not a book guy. There's one that I listened to an audiobook and it was like was it Rockefeller? It was like what was it called? It was like something of how to like win friends and
Yeah,
make
Dale Carnegie.
Dale
That's what you're
Carnegie.
thinking.
Sorry, this
Yeah.
is what it was. I have listened to that audiobook. I fell asleep on the flight for 2 hours, so I missed like chunks of it here and there.
Hey, but maybe it's subliminally programmed into your mind. And I'm going to point something out. Like you and I, just for the listeners or watchers here, I don't know Ty. I heard him speak. I sent him a DM and I followed him after he spoke, and right away he replied with a personal message. And I asked him if he'd be on this podcast. He agreed right away. And just before I hit the record thing, we were just bullshitting, and I mentioned being from Rocky Mountain House. 5 minutes into this call, and he recalls my hometown. So you're natural at that stuff, but you kind of seem like a guy that maybe has read Dale Carnegie cover to cover a few thousand times.
And that was just in January of this year. That was
okay.
That was very recent.
So you already had that set of skills. But this Malcolm Gladwell book, it's called Outliers, and you're not going to read it. That's okay. But he identifies these different types of personalities that are just kind of these exceptional people, and one of them is he refers to as the connector, and the connector is just is that person who just knows everyone. And there's kind of one in every market, sort of. And he gives an example. He's talking to this guy who just knows everyone. Oh, you're into pizza, you got to call this guy. He's got the best pizza place. Oh, you need a roofer. This is the best roofer. And I always thought, like, man, somebody that was that natural connector, if that person ever got their real estate license, like, watch out. They're gonna set the world on fire. Which I think I found the guy.
Well, yeah, and I think this comes from like being even just a friendly person. Like I've always been friendly, even as a kid. Like I remember my grandfather being in the car and we would drive down the highway in rural Manitoba, like middle of nowhere, right? And there'd be one car that would go by and he'd wave and I'd be like, "Who is that?" And he'd be like, "Oh, that's Carl from Carberry." And I'd be like, I look back at it now as a 40-year-old. I'm like, there's no way that he knew every single person driving around. But I always thought there was something to that. Like the King of Kensington, you're in a radio market. I can always equate like radio people to a town. Like Jerry Forbes in Calgary at CJ92.
I used to listen to Jerry Forbes in the morning.
He would be that guy that everybody knew. Everybody was like, hey, there's Jerry. Hey, there's
that guy
Jerry.
Can't sit down for lunch without probably a dozen people coming up and
right.
Like, hey, don't mean to interrupt. Just wanted to say, hey.
And he'd probably take time and chat to everybody and give them all high fives and, buy him a shot because he's a great guy like that. And, I had the pleasure of actually meeting him when I first started in radio, and he took me out for a day. And this is exactly what I saw. I saw a man who, like, people knew him in the community. And I saw very quickly that, like, that is important. And so fame becoming a business model, I didn't even understand my first, because you don't know what you don't know. I spent my first 2 years in real estate being anonymous, like thinking that it was cool to be low key. And I had this job that, like, people weren't always pointing at me in the grocery store, or people weren't recognizing me, which radio, it didn't really happen that often, but, like, it was just one of those things. In your head, you're thinking that it's happening more. If I think I have fans, I might actually have fans. But no, really, just being a real person it's like the hardest thing to do, to be yourself. But man, just be real, authentic with people. Sometimes we make mistakes. Sometimes we, don't communicate as well as we should. Sometimes we have these breakdowns in our business along the way, and just own them. Be real. Just say, hey, look, like, I screwed up. Like, I don't know everything. It does happen sometimes. Like, even though I profess on this podcast that I know many, many things, I don't know everything, and I'm learning every day, and I'm putting myself out there to learn every day. Like, every time I'm in my car, I'm listening to somebody who's 10 steps ahead of me in the race, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And then, like, you somehow find yourself in these circles of people that are so far ahead of you, and you're like, this is crazy. Like, I feel like I'm just, like, at this entry level part of my career. But then, like, I hear you say off the top, and you're like, hey, this is, like 1% of people do this. And it's like, yeah, I don't even sit back and give myself credit for it. Yeah. I'm still in the forest, man. I can't see the trees, like, I still feel that there's so much to go, because real estate has so many different dynamic areas to it. And for me, it's more than I'm learning now, like, even being asked to be on a podcast where I'm like, hey, maybe there is more to this. Maybe I can unpack some of these little nuances of business that I've been able to do and share. And, hopefully at some point I'll be able to go and travel and maybe do some speaking or coaching along the way, and show other people that, like, it is possible to go from, like, zero to, like, whatever you want in life if you just put in the legwork
and be yourself. I love that. I love that advice. And I think that's a great high note to end this on. You've given me an hour of your time. It's very generous. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's TySellsWPG. If you want to look up my man Ty on social media, and if you enjoyed this, like and share and subscribe and give him a follow. Thanks for doing
I would
this
say,
Ty.
Oh, of course. And tag all your friends who have friends and family in Winnipeg. Let them know
get a message from Ty.
Yeah, if there's any referrals that need to be handled in Winnipeg, we have elite client care, and we will look after our people. Yeah, I just appreciate the opportunity. It's very nice to chat with you. I now know, that you're a real person. I'm a real person. And next time we connect, I'll probably be at a real estate event, and it'll be great to slap hands with you and see you in person.
Definitely looking forward to it. Thanks again, man. Have a great day.
Okay, you too.